What is the 0 in your graph right now?
-2.
Okay, so I know that my 0 is a -2. What is one factor that I know right away? X plus 2. Okay? I know, though, that I need to find how many more zeros?
3. Or 2.
2 more. How many more factors will I have? 2 more. Remember, because if you have 1 0, you have 1 more factor. If you got 2 zeros, you got 2 more factors. But we both know they're going to be complex conjugates. How do I get back? How do I get down to the point of finding my other 2 zeros? What would you have to do first right now? He says divide. What would you divide?
Wherever it intercepts on
You're kind of okay, but what would you do though? What are you dividing by? I mean, when you just say divide, that doesn't tell me anything.
Would you divide a factor by the actual equation?
divide by the opposite or
Divide by what opposite?
did you intercept your x-intercept?
You would use -2. How do you know to use -2? Because it's a what?
0.
It's a 0. So we're going to use synthetic division, and what's going to be on the outside of my synthetic division? -2, and you know that because why? It's a 0. It's one of your answers, right? They were nice enough to give that to you on a graph. So then I use synthetic division, whichever my numbers here would be. Okay, my synthetic division would work, and then what am I going to be left with here? Some kind of a what? Not just a number. What am I going to be left with after I use synthetic division one time?
Quadratic.
I'm going to get a quadratic equation. Remember, whenever you do synthetic division, it always goes down a power. So if you start with something that's x cubed, something down here is going to be what? X squared. If you ever had something x squared and use synthetic division, the next one would be to the power of 1. Right? So whenever you use synthetic division, it's going down a power. So therefore, if I start with x cubed, use synthetic division, now I'm going to have a good old trinomial down here. What do we do with trinomials? We can factor them down. If I know, though, I have 2 complex numbers, am I going to be able to factor down that trinomial?
No.
No, what do you have to do? Quadratic equation. And your quadratic equation will tell you what your complex numbers are. Absolutely. By looking at a quadratic equation, how do you know they contain complex numbers?
Plus or minus. Plus or minus.
Plus minus always in there.
In the radical.
What's in the radical? A negative is in your radical. Very good. Anytime you have a negative in the radical, what do we call that number in the radical? Discriminant. Very good. You call it a discriminant. Anytime your discriminant is a negative number, you got 2 complex numbers you're dealing with. That's how you know. So if you know that you have 2 complex numbers here, and you attempt the quadratic equation, and yet you get a positive number in the discriminant, what can you tell yourself? I screwed up. Okay, you don't need someone to stand behind you and say, you know what, I think you're doing this wrong. You know that. Okay? Because if you have a negative number here, you know that your discriminant's got to be negative. And if you get a positive, you know you messed up somewhere. Okay, that doesn't have to be, you have to be a rocket scientist to be able to figure that out. That's just good old common sense. Okay? I know common sense is hard for some of us, but I didn't say Will. I didn't say Amy.
You just did.
Or Will. No, I didn't. You know, all that is like, it's like guilty conscience. When I'm talking, you're like, what? It's just like guilty conscience. I didn't say a name. Right, Haley? Nice, God, you're so. Alright, okay, so anyway, back to
You are.
No. Alright, so does that make sense? Okay, your graph will tell you a lot of information. Okay, your graph will tell you a lot. Alright? If you're looking for your x-intercept and there's only 1 there, you know you got 3 answers, you know you have 2 complex numbers somewhere. You know that if you have 2 complex numbers, you're going to have to use a quadratic equation sometime. Okay, so put that stuff away in your knowledge, in your wonderful bank of knowledge stored away for a nice rainy day. Alright, there we go. Let's go on. Let's get going here. Okay. That's not all the books. That's some of them. That's majority of them, but that's not all. Okay, here we go. Let's get to majority of. That's just a good lead into what we're doing today. What we're doing today, guys, is almost exactly what we did the other day. Okay, exactly what we did the other day. Okay, what they're going to do today, and I'm not even going to use that big board up there today. I'm going to leave it off. Well, maybe I won't use it.
We're going old school?
No, I was going to, but then I decided.
Overhead.
Oh my god, that's the most annoying thing ever.
I hated the overhead.
It's like, and then you carry
All right,
it forward.
here we go. Okay, so if they give you a polynomial and they say, okay, given that 3 is a 0, then you have to solve. What are you doing? If they say blah 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 blah, given that 3 is a 0, okay, here's your polynomial. Okay, here's your polynomial. Given that 3 is a 0. What does that tell you?
They want you to find one.
Tell me, what'd you say?
X minus 3 is a factor.
Okay, first of all, you know x minus 3 is a factor. If you have to solve that polynomial, and you know that 3 is a 0, what would you do first? Do you need to find your possible zeros? Why do you, who said, was that you?
Yeah, he said
Okay, alright. If you know that 3 is a 0, why do you not have to look for any other possible zeros?
Because you need that.
You already have one. You already have one. So what would be your first number you're going to use in synthetic division?
-3.
3. Not negative 3, 3.
Oh,
Remember, 3 is a 0.
I'm tripping.
So your first step then would be 3, and you have to do your synthetic division. Right? I can't put numbers in there because I don't have numbers right now. That'd be your first step. So if they were to give you a 0, you know, you're not thinking of the possible zeros anymore because you don't have to because they gave you one already. So now 3's there, then you do long division. Once you get this trinomial down here, then what do? You factor it down. You factor it down. Okay? You factor it down. Pretty simple. Alright? So the only thing different about what they're going to begin with today is they're going to give you a 0. So you don't have to list the possible zeros. They're going to give you one, which makes life easier for you in the long run. Okay? Alright? The next 4 problems then are telling you to find all possible zeros. If they ask for all possible zeros, okay, let's look at one here. 4x to the 5th plus 6x squared minus 8x to the 8th plus 10x. Okay, they want all possible zeros. Again, find my possible zeros. I have what? My factors of what? No, just tell me. Factors of what? I don't want any numbers in there. I want to know the words right now. Factors of what?
Constant.
Constant. My factors of my constant, which I gotta put a constant up here. Factors of constant divided by what?